So it's very quiet in Portugal right now, except for the dogs. Apparently, all the power has gone out. And the weird thing is, like, you just feel this little bit of unease. Like, what does that mean? Like, how does a whole country just suddenly run out of power?
Went for a little drive. None of the power is working anywhere. Apparently, Spain, Portugal, and France, and maybe other countries are completely without power. We heard it was because there was a plane that crashed in France somewhere. So we're trying to connect to the satellite. Pointing at the satellite. It's just a demo. Oh, 4G.
No internet connection.
Yeah, I don't think so.
All right, so today started off like any other day. We were working, and suddenly what happened was the power went out. And I was actually on a call with Reddit ads at the time. And I thought this was really interesting because it got rescheduled, and then I lost power. I came back tethering to my cellular, and then I connected with him. And then it was very soon after he said, "I'm really sorry. I've got to end this call. We've got to go. There's an event happening right now." And he was actually in Lisbon. That was around the same time. Then the power's been out. Okay. And the weird thing is, usually the power is out locally, so you can still connect to your cellular plan. All the cellular's down, all the internet's down. Half the radio, we went for a drive, half the radio stations are just gone. There's only one radio station on the AM dial. Of course, they're talking about it. It's a very confusing time. And we talked to our neighbor about it, and she said this has never happened in over 70 years. So you have that calmness of not being connected, not being plugged into the internet, and at the same time, that just general unease of when are things coming back, added to the fact with, like, how does a whole country, the whole Iberian Peninsula and France and maybe other countries lose power at the same time? It's also very troubling because my wife's mother is in Canada and we don't really have any way of reaching her at all. There's no kind of way to get a message out or in. I've never experienced anything like this before, so we'll see how this plays out. On Monday, Portugal experienced the biggest power outage they have ever had. The entire country lost power. Blackout began around 11:35 local time, and this led to widespread disruption. If you can imagine, major cities like Lisbon had loss of power, causing chaos on the roads, traffic lights going out, transportation stopped. Hospitals switched to emergency generators, and many businesses just closed because there was no power. People couldn't withdraw money, and some people had no access to water. We were fortunate that we filled up a bunch of water as soon as the power went out, but even with that in the back of our minds, you just never know. How long are you holding water for? How long are you trying to ration food for? Because it was really unprecedented where the whole country of Portugal lost power. It was surreal. Spain had declared a state of emergency. So the question is, why did this happen? And how could it have caught so many people off guard? Just for a little context for the conspiracy theorists among us, Russia has been wanting to knock out the power in Ukraine for the past 3 years, and they haven't been able to do that. And yet, according to Portugal's grid operator REN, these unusual temperature swings caused anomalous oscillations. I'm not sure what that means, but in high voltage power lines, basically it was able to cause synchronization problems across the interconnected European network of power grids. But does that really make sense? Some of the engineers have said that the grid modernization is really not in place. They've just been patching holes and fixing up things rather than really building something that's robust and able to deal with a cataclysmic event such as this. And Portugal was hit hard because it imports a significant portion of its energy from Spain. It's very reliant on its Iberian neighbor, the Spanish. Besides the scale of the power outage, the real magnitude is the totality of the loss of power. It was almost like, is there something going on here? Is there something that we just don't know about? A political attack, a cybercrime, a cyber attack. Nothing could get in and out. No communications, no nothing. Even now, the next day, check out this lineup of people at Lidl still trying to get their hands on water. And this is in Seixal, just across the river from Lisbon. So in the afternoon with no power, we actually made some pico de gallo. I'm not sure what that's called in Portuguese, but basically it's finely diced onions, tomatoes, lots of lime juice, salt, and you eat it with corn chips. Oh, and cilantro, coentros, as they call it here. And it's absolutely delicious. probably one of the best foods you could have for this kind of emergency where you can't cook. We took a walk around town. There were lots of people outside talking because in the early evening, after the sun has gone down, it's much brighter outside than inside if there's no electricity. So it was interesting to walk around and talk to some of the people in our town. Much later, we found out that a grocery store, in fact, was open, the Continent, and we didn't know this before. The lights were a little different because it was on a generator, but there were whole sections of food gone, like all the breads, particularly the packaged breads and all the fresh breads, were basically wiped out. The potatoes were all wiped out. The fresh fruits were all wiped out. And it's amazing to think that when I was seeing those scenes of empty store shelves, it reminded me of that time back in COVID during the pandemic when we first started to see this under quarantine, that how quickly an event happens and then there's such demand for certain items that they're just totally wiped off the shelves completely. It was a little bit unnerving because at that point we still didn't know how long this was going to be. We heard some rumors that it might be as long as 72 hours, but still it's very concerning when you just don't know what's next. For me, it was a surreal kind of day where we just hung around, spent some time with the family, and had some time to reflect on our life and what was coming up ahead. And ultimately, the sudden loss of power and internet and cellular, it gives rise to make you think of how much we are reliant on that every day. It's a new normal. I remember growing up and not having the internet in my teenage years. And then again, like here we are now, and everyone's so reliant on it, so used to it. It's a little bit unnerving at times how important it's become. And I think it comes back to the Portuguese community. They have a word of the Portuguese community spirit, Desenrascar, probably saying that really badly, but that sense of making do with what you have is quite a fabric of the Portuguese community. And you felt that coming together with this event. And again, the absence, whatever you don't have, it makes you appreciate what you have even more. So whether it was cyber criminals or just a failure in planning or infrastructure, bad luck, this outage did expose some serious vulnerabilities. So here are some tips for you for next time. First, always keep a power bank charged. This is a simple thing that saved us during the outage. Second, buy a simple LED light that can plug into a USB port on your computer. This gave us significantly more light than just the candles that we had. Of course, we had some Velish, some candles as well, but the LED light really makes a big difference. And if you have one that can charge directly on your computer or run directly from your computer, that's good. I'll put a link in the description about that if you're interested in what we have. Third, download Google Maps for your area. When you don't have Google Maps and you can't connect to the internet, you don't want to be lost in a city like Lisbon, particularly if you need to drive and get somewhere. So that's always a good thing to have offline maps. Also, always keep some cash on hand. It's always a good practice. I've got a little cork wallet that I keep with some cash on hand because you never know when you're going to need that or when suddenly the ATMs are just out of money. And that's not the first time this has happened in Portugal. I have gone to some ATMs and they've just been empty. I think they just hadn't been refilled, which is not quite as a robust system as you may be used to in North America. And lastly, keep some canned food and water on hand. This is really important. You just never know. And again, this is the next day in Seixal, Portugal, stocking up on food and water at Lidl. Just be safe out there. Make sure that you have something you can eat. It's concerning when you see the run on food. People make a run on the grocery store trying to get certain items. You can imagine how bad that would become if this was a more prolonged delay, if this was 72 hours or even longer. It is important to make sure you have these essentials on hand and preferably some things that you can be eaten at room temperature and will have a longer shelf life. And finally, embrace the Portuguese way. That's the spirit of improvisation and the community coming together, and that could be your best resource in an event like this in the future. Be prepared to desenrascar. Desenrascar. Oh man. Desenrascar. Desenrascar. It's tough. Portuguese is tough. I try. I know I suck, but I try. That's all I got for you, YouTube fam. Take it. We'll see you next week.